Hello. Is water okay, or would you like me to call you something else?
Yeah, waterworks.
Okay. Waterworks.
Yeah,
Water. How are you doing?
doing all right. Doing all right. We're back. We're at it again. You said you're pro-Palestine, right?
Indeed, I am. That is
What does
accurate.
that mean to you? Does because I've seen extremes from I support Hamas, which most people don't have, and then I've seen extremes on the other side. It's just like I just don't want any war, right? What would you say when you say you support pro-Palestine?
Well, Hamas is a resistance group, so it is like the only resistance group in the area with any like legitimate power to combat Israel, and that's why people have put their stock behind them. Israel is invading Palestine and committing apartheid and committing genocide. So it is difficult for me to sit here and entertain the idea like Hamas bad because I'm not saying they're good. Like they're a politically motivated group. They commit violence, sometimes a little unnecessarily, sure. But when you stack that against Israel and the shit that they're doing, I can't get behind this idea that I should care.
Wait, so if you can't get you're referring to like the care about like when Hamas rapes women and children on October 7th, attacks Israel repeatedly with missiles for the past 20 something years, hijacks planes, kills Israeli athletes, like none of that.
Well, those all
Especially when
sound
it's like
like
targets like
very
the Palestinian Authority. Yeah.
those all
Sorry, I
sound
didn't
like
mean to interrupt.
very bad. No, you're fine. Those all sound like very bad things that would not have happened had Israel not invaded Palestine.
They didn't. What I'm talking about with like the missile attacks and like 2000, that was unprompted. That was during the like in between the first and second Intifada. There was no invasion of Gaza at this time. There was
There's
no genocide or anything like that. Yeah.
Israel has been in Gaza since like the 1940s or 50s or 60s,
Not
between the
even
40s and
no.
60s.
Whoa, no. They
No?
haven't. So in '67, they got like the land after a war that Egypt and the surrounding Arab coalition like fought them. Like they Israel did a preemptive strike, but it was very clear that the surrounding states were going to attack Israel. This has been disputed by some, but it seems by every account, if you want to go through the facts of it, that Israel was justified in preemptively striking the surrounding Arab countries. That was the only time up until I think after 73 and Yom Kippur when they gave back the Sinai and they gave back the land of Gaza, and I think they gave back West Bank to Jordan.
Well, how nice of them to give it back.
Well, yeah, especially after the Arab countries around them tried to kill them all in a genocide. Yeah, that was pretty
Didn't
nice, actually.
didn't you say that Israel committed a preemptive strike?
Yeah, after the Arab nations around them mobilized, they kicked out UN peacekeepers in the Suez. Nasser literally said in public speeches that he wanted to go to war with Israel again, and that he was going to close the Suez, which caused the Suez crisis of '56. So he knew that there would be a conflict. That's why he kicked out the UN peacekeepers. That's why he started mobilizing the army, and like it was very clear that they were posturing for war.
Okay, but Israel started it.
Okay, do you think if Poland invaded Nazi Germany on like October 30, or sorry, on like August 31st, right, before September 1st, when World War II historically starts, do you think that would be justified?
If Poland invaded Nazi Germany in 19 in
Yep. Before
no,
the war
actually
starts,
no.
you don't think so? Okay,
No.
why would you say not?
Because invading another nation against their will and killing civilians is never okay, even if it's Poland doing it to innocent people during Nazi Germany. Like that is not okay.
I, I would hardcore disagree because like the outcome, especially because now we have, especially because we're talking with the knowledge of hindsight. Even if we get rid of the hindsight and we put ourselves in the situation of the Poles, okay, very clearly Germany has been posturing for war. They've mobilized troops on the border. They have their navy sailing out near Danzig. It is very clear they're going to invade, and you are a weaker country. You've seen what happened to the countries around them when they tried to invade, similar to how Israel has had conflicts beforehand where the Arab countries have invaded first. Every single war before '67 was started by the Arab coalition. Thus, I think it would be reasonable for Poland or Israel to attack Germany to save their country, their citizens, and to prevent one of the worst disasters that would have been for the Jewish people in either situation. Whether it's World War II, the Holocaust, or it's a second Holocaust if Israel had lost.
So how did that work out for Israel?
It worked out
Did it
really
work?
well. They were able
Oh,
to
it did.
take back a
Okay.
lot of
So nobody was
land.
raped
Yeah,
then, right?
like if you're referring to war crimes, yeah, they happen. It wasn't systemic like how Hamas did on like
No,
October
no, no.
7th. If that's what you're referring to.
What I'm referring to is October 7th. October 7th still
Oh,
happened.
okay, sure. As it what? So when I say 67 was good, obviously it wasn't good long term, but like the alternative is that Israel gets attacked by the Arab countries around them. They don't mobilize, so they get caught off guard. The nation gets like obliterated, like literally eradicated from the map. There would be no Israel, and the Jewish people there would be exterminated or ethnically cleansed entirely from the land.
If Israel has the means by which to invade another nation preemptively, they have the
Right.
means by which to defend themselves.
That's
Does that make
no. Hold
sense?
a minute,
They,
Alec. I understand what you're getting at. Where if a country has the ability to project power into another country, they probably have the means to defend themselves. The problem is when four countries are going to attack your country and those nations are already mobilized. And because like if you look at, do you know much about the 67 war? It's okay if not, no judgment.
Not really. I have it pulled up on Wikipedia.
Okay, if you look at how effective that preemptive strike was, it is literally considered like one of the greatest ones, besides like what we did in Desert Storm in like 2003 or like during the Gulf War. It was incredibly effective. I want you to look at those casualties and imagine a scenario where all of those forces that Israel destroyed were mobilized in a strike against Israel when they didn't have their air force up, when they didn't have their troops mobilized for war. Because again, they were in peacetime, right? They still have the mandatory service, but they don't have, like, for example, like troops called up into active duty in the same way that you would during war. Imagine that. Do you think that, like, I personally am of the belief that Israel would have been wiped out. I think most people could agree with that. What do you think?
I don't think that Israel had to kill anybody. That's what I think.
Okay, that's not the question I asked you. Because, true, Israel could have just sat there and got shot and
Or
then
restrained.
holocausted. Yeah. Restrained? What do you mean by restrained?
Take prisoners of war.
You think, okay.
My point is they're not doing any of this by peaceful means or even trying to. They're killing civilians left and right.
Yeah, hold on. I don't know why you're saying that they could have done it by peaceful means. They were trying to. And then the nations around them decided to mobilize for war. And they said expressly that they wanted to go to war. They did the actions that one would do if they wanted to go to war, like Egypt kicking out UN peacekeepers. Why would they kick out UN peacekeepers? That
Oh, they
makes
didn't kill
no
them?
sense. The Egyptians kicked them out. Yeah, they didn't
Okay.
kill them.
Well, let's
If you
take a
kill
look
them,
at the
yeah.
Egyptians kicking out the peacekeepers then. Egyptian.
Sure.
When did this happen?
67.
Okay, in 67. So I have that pulled up. So let's see. Let's see if I can find Egypt in this article. Okay, Egypt. Suez Crisis. Was this
Suez is,
1956 Suez Crisis? Suez Crisis?
No, there was the 56 Suez crisis that involves that, but there also were peacekeepers that were there on 67. I can pull up like a link for an article that talks more about that.
Sure, go on. What I have pulled up is through the 1950s, Jordan and Egypt supported the Palestinian Fedayeen militants' cross-border attacks into Israel, while Israel carried out its own reprisal operations in the host countries. The 1956 Suez Crisis well, this is already, by the way, after the Arab-Israeli War. So there's the declaration of the establishment of the State of Israel on 14th of May in 1948. The Arab League decided to intervene on behalf of Palestinian Arabs, marching their forces into former British Palestine, beginning the main phase of the 1948 Arab-Israeli War.
Yeah. What were they intervening on? Like, what was happening for them to intervene?
That's what I'm looking for. The 1947 United Nations Partition Plan, which happened a year earlier. Let's see. Recommended the adoption and implementation.
Kind of.
Okay, so to partition Palestine into an Arab state, a Jewish state, and the city of Jerusalem. Palestinian Arabs were opposed to the partition. Zionists accepted the partition, but planned to expel so as a two-state solution.
Pretty much. Technically three, but yeah, there's like a little international corridor, but yeah, other than that, yeah, two-state solution.
Sure. So we're on the same page. So planned to expand Israel's borders beyond what was allocated to it by the UN. On the next day, Palestine was swept by violence, igniting the first phase of the Palestine War. For 4 months
Who
under
started that?
it just says Palestine was swept by violence. The 1940 here, I can look
Okay.
it up. Hold on.
Yeah, it was the Palestinian Arabs. There are some sources that say it was the Israelis, but there hasn't been much documentation about Israeli militias starting it. It seems to be mostly Arab militias in response to the partition plan being like extremely antagonized to the point where they were attacking Zionist militias and other like Jewish communities in the Levant in general. Like
Okay,
this was
just
started by them.
sure, just real quick. I would love to get into a longer conversation with you about this. We have 3.5 minutes. Is there
Okay.
anything else you want to touch on?
Yeah, real quick.
Mhm.
How are things going with the radical empathy stuff?
I think it's
This
going
isn't really a
great.
debate thing. I'm just wondering. Okay,
No, you're fine. I think it's going. We can talk about whatever you want. It's your time,
sure.
but I think it's going great. I think that you and I, obviously, I need to do more research on this. I'll try to do so before we have our next conversation. If you would like to continue this conversation, it seems like you feel pretty strongly about this. And if I'm wrong about, what's going on in Israel and Palestine, I'd like to know. But so
Sure.
far, I just haven't been convinced that I am. We can talk about who started it, who, whatever. But ultimately, what I see with my own eyes is what I believe. And what I see is a whole lot of the IDF doing a whole lot of offending and not a whole lot of defending against, Palestinian civilians. It's quite jarring, actually. It's disgusting to me.
I could agree to
let
some
me,
extent. Yeah.
yeah. If I can ask you this,
Yeah.
tell me something to convince me that seeing those things does not mean that Israel is committing atrocities.
So like, there isn't anything that I could say because that would be like I'm assuming when you mean Israel, you mean like the IDF, right?
Yes,
Okay.
essentially, and Netanyahu, who's like in command.
Yeah. Would you? So the difference is that in the IDF, it's not systematic. I think that systematic versus lone actions matters a lot. Systematic, like for me, encompasses like if a commander sees it happening and doesn't report it, and that's like throughout the IDF, right? That would be an example of like a systemic problem. But like in every military, including our own, this has been a problem for ever since the beginning of man picking up sticks and rocks to fight each other. Um, like I don't know how I could convince you that there aren't atrocities because I would agree with that. There are atrocities on both sides of this conflict. I would say though that in Israel you're going to see people be prosecuted for these crimes. In Gaza they'll be celebrated. That's like
Okay.
the best way I could phrase that.
Can you give me? You have 1 minute. Can you give me like one example of an IDF person who's been prosecuted for what they've done?
Yeah, there's a detention center. I forget the name of it. But there was a detention center in Israel where, I think it was 3 or something like that. There were a group of Palestinian prisoners who were sexually assaulted and they were abused in other forms. This was a very controversial prison because the way that they did things was borderline, if not outright, in this case, torture. The people involved with that were prosecuted, and I think they're still in the middle of that court case. It's been going. Last time I checked, it was going on. That was in like a few months ago. I could get back
Okay.
to you on that specific case, but
Yeah, sure.
it does seem to happen at least, and especially like historically, it's happened like after other interventions or other.
Okay. All right. We can talk about this more later. Thank you very much for coming up. I really appreciate it. I will definitely.
Yeah, no problem.
I'm sorry that I do not have that much knowledge about the history of Israel. If I
No,
had,
you're
we
good.
could have probably gotten further into like. I like to look at it like this. This is a good segue into this point. You don't have to have the knowledge on hand in order to enter a conversation. You can just go in,
Yeah,
and hopefully two
absolutely.
people can learn together. But if you have the knowledge already, it just accelerates the conversation and makes it much faster and you get to the point faster. So we couldn't reach that point
Right.
because I'm not educated. So I apologize for that.
No, no, don't be. I'm never gonna hold it against you. Like
Okay.
the fact you're having this conversation uneducated, and you're willing to listen and like learn is monumentally like it fills me with hope, right? That there are still people who are still willing to listen and learn. I
Sure. Of
appreciate that, and of course you're
course.
not being like, oh my god, thank you for telling me this. Now I believe everything you say. It's speculative. I appreciate that. But I'm gonna hop off. I will DM you, talk about that. maybe we can set up
Yeah.
a different time for this. But yeah, I appreciate
Yeah,
it.
we can definitely set something up. Thank you very much for coming up, Water. All right, take care.
Hi, thanks so much for watching and making it to the end of the video. I just wanted to let you all know that I love and appreciate everybody in my community, whether you can support me financially or just by liking, commenting, and sharing my videos. It helps way more than you know. That being said, I do want to give a very special thanks to my tier 4 subs, which would be Space Timid and Hot Take Andy. And thanks so much to my monetary subscribers from any of the tiered subs or anybody who gives me money in any form, including going to my Patreon shop, donating money to me directly. It all helps way more than you know. If you do decide to help me financially, you can get some really cool perks like early access to content, exclusive access to censored videos, also some really cool badges next to your name. Even if you can't afford a monetary subscription, just watching, sharing, and commenting on my content helps way more than you know. Thanks again, and I will see you all in the next video.